We are back for another episode of Local Festive Traditions, which explores the roots and holiday traditions of local immigrant stories right here in Kennebunk. Each of these stories was researched and written using the local census as well as archival materials here at the Brickstore Museum. Don't forget, you can leave us stories about your own family traditions, questions about the stories that we tell, and discover more of the videos at brickstoremuseum.org/festive traditions. Let's jump back into our story.
My name is Margaret Clark. I live in Kennebunk, but my husband, Edward Blanchard, immigrated here, and I'd like to tell you his story. His name, Edward Blanchard, was not his given name, but that's the name he chose for himself when he arrived in the United States in 1888 at the age of 15. Edward was born in 1873 in Tripoli, Syria, under the rule of the Ottoman Empire. And the city of Tripoli is in current-day Lebanon. Tripoli was a large city, and it served as the main seaport for the city of Aleppo in inner Syria. His parents, Samuel Malki and Hannah Thomas, were native Syrians, and the family watched in concern as conflict in the region grew, especially surrounding the separation of Syria and Lebanon into separate states. Edward left school when he was only 10 years old, and 5 years later, he arrived in America speaking only his native Arabic. When Edward got to Boston, like many of his counterparts, he anglicized his name from Malki to Blanchard to adopt into the majority culture in America. Syrians who immigrated into this country between 1880 and 1920, in general, did not congregate in any particular area, instead preferring to integrate more with their adopted culture. A popular belief from Congress at this time was that Syrians were, quote, the most undesirable peoples of Asia Minor. Knowing this, Edward moved out of the city on his own. Edward became a naturalized citizen in 1895, and by 1910 he arrived in Kennebunk, Maine, and rented a room at the home of Samuel Clark. He worked as a janitor in several public buildings before marrying me in 1918. In fact, we recently celebrated our anniversary. We were married on December 3rd, 1918, when I was 34 and Edward was 46. Since I've lived my entire life here in Kennebunk, I helped Edward acclimate to our new shared home. In 1920, we moved to our house on Brown Street, 9 Brown Street. That house still stands today. I was a bookkeeper at the local laundry, and Edward was a janitor at Ocean National Bank. We both could walk to work. As we didn't have any children of our own, we rented a home in our house to local mill workers, including Lydia Theriot, who emigrated from Canada to work at the shoe mill downtown. At age 67 in 1940, Edward was still working 54 hours a week as a janitor, this time at the Kennebunk Free Library. He passed away suddenly in 1947 at the age of 74 of a heart attack. We both now rest in Kennebunk's Hope Cemetery. As a member of the Maronite Church in Tripoli, Edward practiced Eastern Christianity. That meant that his traditions, molded in the Middle East, were slightly different from other Christian communities, like those in America. Though Maronites consider themselves Catholic, the Roman Catholic Church does not practice the same traditions. Maronite prayers were performed in Aramaic, the original language of Jesus Christ. I'm told that has evolved to modern-day Hebrew. We do celebrate Christmas on December 25th, but we also celebrate the 9-day season of announcements surrounding the holidays. We follow the teachings of Saint Maron, who was a hermit priest. Growing up, on Christmas Eve day, the Malki family would gather around an unlit bonfire and read the Christmas story. When they finished reading the story, the bonfire would be lit. The flames are meant to indicate fate and fortune in the next year. They sang psalms, and once the fire was out, everyone would jump on the ashes 3 times to make their wishes come true. Children receive presents, not on Christmas Day, but on New Year's Day, brought to them by the smallest camel of the three wise men, which brings gifts to children who have been good. In this way, children recognize the importance of even the most insignificant of us by the lessons set by the smallest camel. To honor St. Nicholas, we would hold a Mass on December 6th. Our traditional dishes include kibbe and tabbouleh, chicken, sugared almonds, buttered cookies, oranges, and, of course, espresso.